Film Show.
Cambridge Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Cambridge Film Show, your fortnightly guide to the latest movie releases on the big screen and small. I'm your host, Luke Irwin, and we have a real treat for you today with the rarest of rare commodities, a blockbuster film that features not a single comic book character. The film is Project Hail Mary, which stars Ryan Gosling as a reluctant astronaut who finds himself stranded in space, and it's going to take a whole lot of physics to get him home. But he isn't the only one praying for divine help this week. Joining me in the studio, we have four people pressing their fingers to the pulse of narrative cinema and asking, is this thing still alive? It's hello to Lorcan O'Neill.
Hello.
Emma Marchant.
Hello.
Yozzie Osman.
Hello.
And Stewart Paske.
Hello.
It's great to have you with us here today. We'll be hearing from you over the course of the next hour as we discuss everything that's worth catching in cinemas across Cambridge. In addition to Project Hail Mary, we'll review the action comedy horror They Will Kill You. There's also Splitville, with Dakota Johnson continuing her career-long endeavour to make an entertaining film, and Ready or Not 2, predictably subtitled Here I Come, in which Samara Weaving finds herself in another deadly game of hide-and-seek. Elsewhere, for the kids and Emma, there's The Magic Faraway Tree, a musical fantasy based on the Enid Blyton series, and on home streaming we discuss the action thriller Pretty Lethal, while over in Transylvania it's Luc Besson's turn to reimagine Dracula. But kicking off today's show, we're heading to the stars with Ryan Gosling, who's leading a desperate and improbable act. That's right, a box office hit for Amazon Studios.
I understand that you think I'm the right person for this mission. I understand the stakes.
Object approaching.
If we do nothing, everything on this planet will go extinct, including us. Dr. Grace, the world is counting
So, as
on
you might have been able to gather from the trailer, Project Hail Mary tells the story of Ryland Grace, that's Ryan Gosling, a high school biology teacher who wakes from a coma to discover he is the sole survivor aboard an interstellar spaceship and no memory of how he got here. His mission, we will soon learn, concerns a mysterious infrared line emitting from the sun that is causing its temperatures to cool, and as a result, the Earth facing a climate crisis. Yoz, this is a film that delights in what we'd call hard sci-fi. That's films that are characterised by their scientific accuracy, or at least plausibility. And at its centre, this is a film about a man doing scientific research. I mean, that sounds dry, but did it manage to entertain you?
Oh, it was so entertaining. And as someone who's not really a fan of the sci-fi genre and actually did little to no research on this film before going to see it, it was a real delight for me. For me, what was at the centre of this film was the relationship between Ryan Gosling's character and Rocky, the sort of alien, kind of literally Rocky character. And that, for me, was where the charm in this film lay. I honestly, I wasn't expecting what I saw, which was just this gorgeous relationship. And it was very moving, it was very charming, it was very funny. I had a really good time watching this, and will say as well, it really deserves to be on the big screen, because actually, speaking of sci-fi and thinking about the fact that this is in space, it looks spectacular. You know, the cinematography is wonderful and you really get into it. So thumbs up from me.
Brilliant. Stu, I'll come to you next. So yours there sort of alluded to this Rocky character. I don't think this is a spoiler to refer to this sort of third character in what's essentially a three-hander for most of the film. You have Ryan Gosling next to this thing that he meets in space, and I found this character delightful. How did you enjoy it?
No, so I'm a huge fan of Project Hail Mary. I would say I've read the book, but I listened to it. I'm a huge fan of an audiobook. And so I went into the cinema pretty much knowing the story inside and out. And I was a huge fan of it, and not just because the narrator for the audiobook is also the narrator for another great series of books, which I am a huge fan of. But in terms of the actual character Rocky is brilliantly put together as a piece of practical effects. He's got 5 puppeteers. He's got some very advanced motors inside him that the studio, so some of the first people in Hollywood that used these sorts of motors to keep these sort of various components of him ticking over. And as well as that, the voice actor James Ortiz was one of the puppeteers, and he sort of almost came into voicing the character by mistake because he was reading the lines to Ryan Gosling on set, and they just started riffing and forming that natural sort of chemistry together. So that really comes across on the screen, of this little sort of buddy duo stuck in space trying to save their respective worlds, and I think that really adds heart and layers to the film.
And it's really interesting so far that this conversation is going in a way that I don't think a lot of people would have expected from a premise of a man in space. We've mostly been talking about this charming, sweet narrative between these two figures here. And I want to just clarify, I'll come to you, Emma. So Project Hail Mary. Hail Mary is a very common American term, and I don't think UK audiences will really know what this means. And I feel like we need to set up exactly how Ryan Gosling meets this rock in space.
Well, it's so let's rewind a little bit. This is based on a novel by Andy Weir, who also wrote The Martian, which was also a pretty popular hard sci-fi film directed by Ridley Scott and starring Matt Damon as the lone sort of nerdy yet cool guy. In that case, he was stuck on Mars and he had to get home. In this case, Ryan Gosling is a genius yet befuddled physics teacher who has written a paper that claims that actually human life doesn't require water. This is his big thing he's done. This is how the FBI then track him down when they're trying to save the Earth from this astrophase that is eating our sun. And this team is led by Sandra Huller and a really actually beautifully used Lionel Boyce, best known for The Bear, playing the sort of bouncer, if you like, Carl. And so they come and sort of almost abduct him from his class where he's teaching delightful mid-school physics, to say, look, you've got to, this is it. And a Hail Mary is a pass that's used, and it turns to use for American football, the pass, like the final pass of the game or whatever, when you never think you're going to do it and someone just throws that Hail Mary pass, you've got no choice. It's either win it or it's all over. So this is where they are. So we're going on. It's a little bit Armageddon in that they're going in and they may never see each other again, but the film starts with Ryan Gosling waking up and he has no memory of how he's got here. And so then you see it's a sort of flashback from him being in space, befriending Rocky and all of those delights, all of that kind of E.T. style delights, but also flashing back to find out where it put in, and that's where the hard physics came in. I also had a great time because Ryan Gosling, they can try and make him look like a sort of fairly run-of-the-mill physics teacher with his glasses balanced on his chin in a charming manner, but he will be Ryan Gosling, whose charisma leaps off the screen a lot like Matt Damon's did in The Martian. Also, this is directed by Lord and Miller, who are the guys behind the Lego Movie, so there is a lot of the script is great, it's sharp, it's witty, and if anyone's going to play off well against Puppet or himself, again, it's Ryan Gosling. This is a 2.5 hour running time. I didn't feel it at all. It's such a fun family film. I mean,
we're on the verge of a sort of a unanimous positive
unheard of
review here. And you referred to Chris Miller and Phil Lord, the two directors of this film. They have been traditionally known for animated children's films. They got their big break with the Lego Movie about 10 years ago, and they did 21 and 22 Jump Street. These are real comedy guys, and I believe, Lorcan, you'll be able to correct me, they were involved in a Star Wars film and then got fired, I believe, for wanting to make it too silly. And I kept on thinking about that the whole time I was watching this film.
Well, I mean, rumors still abound as to why they were sacked from Lucasfilm, but I think Phil Lord has a really good TED Talk from a few years ago, where he talks about how they tried to get Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs made, and they were writing script after script after script. There were all these fantastic ideas, but the studio kept rejecting it because there was no kind of emotional heart. And so for me, what I was worried about with this, because I really like hard sci-fi, I love stuff like The Andromeda Strain, 2001, things that are very cold and methodical rather. But you can't make a film about a guy that befriends a rock that has this budget without lots of kind of schmaltz. So they do bring a lot of Hollywood schmaltz, but it's quite well balanced. They really do earn that relationship between Ryan Gosling and The Rock. Really interesting casting to get Sandra Huller from Zone of Interest and Tony Erdmann, who isn't the type of person who would play off as a romantic lead against Ryan Gosling, but they do have kind of a borders on relationship, and it's really interesting to see those two play off each other. So there is kind of cloying emotional schmaltz, but it is mixed in with a lot of interesting sci-fi that I was surprised at how kind of how serious it took its physics. and how sincere it presented its premise. So I think there is a lot of like really heartfelt, deep, emotional scenes as well. But yeah, it is Lord and Miller not just bringing some humor and kind of emotional depth, but the film looks incredible. There's the visually it harkens back to, you know, European Tarkovsky and Soderbergh's Solaris and all that kind of stuff. So visually it's quite striking, and they really use the premise about a guy going to space to see a planet. They really come up with a lot of inventive ways to really stun you in the audio, and really stun you on the screen.
So one of the great things about this film as well is it's one of those great moments where you get to say some of it was actually shot in Cambridge. So scenes there are lots of flashback scenes. So Ryan Gosling's character starts the film coming out of an induced coma, a bit of amnesia, and as he gets his memories back over the course of the film, he flips back to this observatory, and that observatory is the Mullard Radio Astronomy Observatory in Cambridge, just beyond Barton, so Cambridgeshire. But it's another great example of location shooting that's positively benefited the city.
This film has really surprised me. If you told me that part of this film was shot in Cambridge, I don't think I would have predicted that at all. There's a few other. So Andy Weir wrote the novel for this, and we've mentioned that was also the source material for The Martian, which was a very, as I recall it, a quite serious film. I believe it got Oscar buzz.
It wasn't so. I think I felt quite similarly. This is cuter, but I think also the music. I don't know how much Andy Weir has to do with the soundtrack, but at the end of The Martian, you have Matt Damon kind of riding his dune buggy along to ABBA, I think, or whatever. Which is done by 5 years, and here you had a lot of music used as well. The Martian maybe felt more serious because it was Ridley Scott, perhaps. But
that was the question I was going to ask. I think a lot of people probably would have been concerned that Ridley Scott is a big guy, and he knows how to handle these kinds of films. And when you've got a pair of comedy directors attached, it has a very different tone. Although I am seeing people say early contender for 2027 Oscars for this.
I would love to see Ryan Gosling nominated. I think he does a stunning job because it is 2.5 hours and he pretty much has to hold it himself. And I do think that Ryan Gosling is, we talk about the fact that we're losing our bona fide A-list movie stars, right? And I think Ryan Gosling is showing that he can open a film. And that's not so hard. That's pretty hard in this day and age.
And he's not just opening. I mean, he's the guy for pretty much the entire runtime. I thought this was a really superb performance from him. Does anyone have any final thoughts on this one before we move on?
I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that both this and The Martian have both been based on a novel by Andy Weir, but written by Drew Goddard of Daredevil and Cabin in the Woods fame. So it's interesting to have one person kind of keeps churning out these scripts, but presented by different directors. So I think that's kind of noteworthy, but it's definitely 100% go see it in the cinema. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree. This is a really incredibly impressive cinematic feat, particularly for reasonably low budgets. I know this is already, I think, the highest grossing film of the year so far.
This is a remarkable start to the show, everybody. We're all completely consistent.
I was quite surprised. Let's see if it carries on.
Fingers crossed it goes all downhill from here. Anyway, that is Project Hail Mary. It's a certificate 12A, and it is showing in all 3 Cambridge cinemas. That's the Picture House, the Light, and the Everyman. And you have heard our team's thoughts on Project Hail Mary, but if you want to share your opinions on the film or any of the others that we discussed today, you can get in touch with us on text or WhatsApp on 07919 070490, or you can email us at studio@cambridge.radio. In the meantime, we have another fantastic adventure, but this time the stakes are a little lower as we visit the magic Faraway tree.
Dear Grandma, we've moved to the countryside. Dad's crazy plan is infecting the whole family.
I feel like their childhood is slipping away. Polly, the kids need this.
Just remember, don't go in that wood up top. Some folks say it's enchanted. Strange creatures. Floaty lights. You have the usual things.
I wouldn't say that was very usual.
Whoa! What is this place?
The Magic Faraway Tree.
Based on Enid Blyton's children's books, The Magic Faraway Tree introduces us to the Thompsons, a young family that trades their big city life for a fresh start in the country. The kids, as you'd expect, are not delighted, but when the youngest, Fran, played by Billy Gadsden, discovers, you've guessed it, a magic tree. Things take a turn for the spectacular. Emma, there's one thing that I'm especially curious about here, and casting my mind back to when I read children's books, 2 or 3 years ago, they rarely had the most robust of plots, and I saw that this film is almost 2 hours long, and I'm really wondering...
It's an hour and 40, but my goodness, it feels longer than Project Hail Mary. Sorry, go on.
Oh no, that's my question is how do they manage that runtime?
Okay, so I, being a child of the early 70s, had a lot of Enid Blyton read to me, or I read a lot of Enid Blyton because, there wasn't that much kids' TV or exciting young adult novels around when I was a kid. So the Magic Faraway Tree, absolutely, the series of books, absolutely key part of my childhood. And they are glorious for anyone who knows them at all. It's this idea that on this tree you have this eccentric bunch of characters living. You have Moonface, who has a face like a moon. You have Saucepan Man, who is deaf because he wears saucepans all over himself and he can't hear himself through the clanking. You have Silky the fairy. You have Dame Washalot, who just chucks her washing water down the tree the whole time. You have the angry pixie, who's always angry. But then the real thing is, at the top of the tree there is a ladder that goes into the sky, and there is a different land there. And the lands change. And so you can go up and you go to the land of toys, the land of goodies, or the land of sweets. But beware if you're stuck up there or if you're too greedy in the land of sweets. There was always a moral, because obviously Enid Blyton, writing in the 50s, very fond of a moral. So there's always a moral. And so the three siblings in the book sort of get into various scrapes and occasionally do miss their exit from the land and get stuck up there, or get stuck up in an unpleasant land, the land of you must do what I say, or the land of... In this case, you do have Rebecca Ferguson popping up as Dame Snap, who is a sort of prisoner come teacher. But what they've done with this film, and I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot because, by the way, no one else has seen it. Just for anyone thinks I'm just taking over, no one else went to go and see this. I really wanted to, because like I say, I was so fond of these books as a child, and also there was a weird animated series that came out about 20 years ago that actually, we had a weird DVD and our kids ended up watching it as well. So I did manage to persuade my youngest, Jago, at 15 and too cool for school, to come and see it with me, because he had quite fond memories as well. I'd say we were both equally nonplussed by this. It's Simon Farnaby wrote this, who is responsible, of course, for Paddington 2 and some of Wonka and Horrible Histories and Ghosts, and is generally just an absolute national treasure as far as I'm concerned in waiting. So I was excited from that point of view. It stars the great and the good of British acting. Andrew Garfield, Claire Foy, Nicola Coughlan from Bridgerton, Rebecca Ferguson, I just said, from Mission Impossible, and Nonzo Nosey from I think from Sweet, the Netflix show. He was that's what I've seen him in. Michael Palin, I could go on.
I mean, the least surprising person that I think in this cast is Jennifer Saunders. Of course, she's in this film. Of course,
she's not in it enough though. Maybe. So the problem is in the books are literally just stories about them going up to these lands. And funny, fantastical things happen to them. Here they shoehorn in this sort of subplot about the fact that Andrew Garfield, as the world's tweest sort of hippie father who just wants to go and grow tomatoes, and Claire Foy is his engineer wife, they've taken these kids off to the country, and it's in order for him to sort of fulfill his dream of growing tomatoes for someone.
Is he making a pasta sauce business? This is what
he wants to do, because he is apparently Italian, even though he can't speak Italian. He has no sort of reference to this, but in his blood he knows he is Italian. And somewhat strangely, Jennifer Saunders plays the multi-millionaire evil mother-in-law who is German, and then the only sort of sense of drama is that she wants to come and take them back to London. But that family subplot is so cloying as to just be nauseating. And from the people behind Paddington, who managed to make something that could have been quite cloying and also took a classic 70s trope and updated it beautifully and just made it feel sort of British in the best way, this felt British in the most pastiched way, that half of it. Having said that, I think the production design is fantastic. There's a lot of money on the screen. They make the lands look great. There's just not enough of them. You'll see the trailer and you'll see so much thrown into that trailer. It reminds me a little bit, let's say, of the Wuthering Heights trailer, where you saw so much of the costumes and the sets, but actually when you go and see the film, you'll literally realise it was made for Instagram, and you have like 3 seconds on each of these things. And that felt a bit like this. The lands aren't given enough love, the magic isn't given enough love, and instead it's just this, horrible, like, Wi-Fi is bad for children, let's all move our family out to the country and get back to brass tacks, but from a very sort of classically white upper middle class family as well. It didn't sit with me.
Well, I mean, hopefully the pasta sauce business at least turns out all right, and he can say all's well that bechamel.
Sadly, it's a tomato pasta sauce. Bechamel wouldn't quite work, but I wish that had happened.
You can email in if you can think of any other better tomato sauce-based puns.
I'm just not sure as well. I like I say, I went with my 15-year-old who had fond memories of it as well, and we didn't hate it, but it was it's really no Paddington or not even a Wonka. I'm not sure if this was to speak to very young children because it requires quite a lot of concentration, and didn't speak to me as an avid fan of the book. So it feels a bit like it's lost its audience.
Well, there we go. We do have to move on, I'm afraid. We got quite a lot of vitriol out of that, so it's nice that we balance things out a little bit so far today. That is the Magic Faraway tree. It's a certificate U, so don't bring your young children, I guess. And that's showing at all 3 Cambridge cinemas as well. And we have time for one more film in the first half of today's show. And whether you're ready or not, here comes another deadly game of hide and seek.
You've caused quite a stir, Mrs. Ladomas. You married into that family. Now they're dead. What you didn't know is that this goes far beyond them. By surviving hide and seek, you've triggered a new game. This time against the High Council families. Double or nothing. This part will be familiar. They will try to kill you.
Welcome to our home.
Hunters, may the best family win.
That was the trailer for Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, which picks up moments after the 2019 film left off. If you'll recall, newlywed Grace, played by Samara Weaving, was forced to fight for her life after marrying into the family from hell and their rather unusual wedding night rituals. We pick up moments later, where Grace has survived the attack, only for her to learn that she has disrupted a council of elite families, and they force her into coming back for round 2 after kidnapping her sister, played by Catherine Newton. Lorcan, this is a pretty tight and tested formula for sequels. The in-world lore expands, new family members are introduced, but the fundamental plot mechanic is essentially the same. I'm led to believe she again is hunted down by a bunch of people and has to kill them in gruesome ways. Does the film do just enough to be different?
Oh, it's a good question. Well, Ready or Not 2, here we go again. It's these directors, I don't know what their thing is, but these directors who also did the recent Scream movies, which I wasn't a fan of, they love earmarking the characters that they like, and so there's characters that just aren't going to die. So at the start of the film, we're introduced to this mysterious sister who isn't referenced in the first film. And so it's played by Catherine Newton. And those two are estranged, and they don't like each other, and they're bickering, and they're saying, we used to work as a team, we don't work as a team anymore. So straight away, you know what the entire film is going to be. You know what the final scene is going to be. You know both these characters are going to survive. And so it's like, okay, so you've taken all the tension out of this horror film. What's left? Performances, overall pretty fine. I think Elijah Wood really carries a lot of the film. He's an absolute delight. And David Cronenberg is in and out before he can embarrass himself. But his portrait does a lot of heavy lifting in this film. And Samara Weaving and Catherine Newton, they do have good chemistry. So performance is fine. It's funny enough. Chuckled here or there. And then you got action. There's elements where they're trying to do John Wick, but it's just all the rich people that are hunting them are just completely, basically incompetent. And so it's kind of like, I never really knew how to felt at any moment, or what I was supposed to laugh at, what was supposed to be kind of tense or scary. And I miss the spooky house. It's set in a golf course. And it's just like, well, that's quite a step down from a big spooky house with lots of antiques and hidden rooms and bookcases and things like that.
It seems like the sort of mechanism that would have happened if they'd shot this during COVID.